What is up, everyone? Thanks for joining us on another episode of Inside Inter Miami. I'm your host, Andre Fernandez, Deputy Sports Editor at the Herald. We're joined once again by our Inter Miami beat writer, Michelle Kaufman, back for another big soccer filled episode this week, talking a little bit of everything, talking about Lionel Messi. What's the latest on Mr. Messi, and when are we going to see him back on the field wearing pink and black again? Luis Suarez update, didn't travel to that Tigres game last week, which did not go well for Inter Miami. We'll dive into that matchup and why Inter Miami ended up on the short end of a 2-1 loss, but not eliminated, of course. Moving on in the Leagues Cup round, as we knew they were already, we'll preview that next big matchup in the round of 32, which is Thursday against Toronto FC. Plus, hey, reinforcements are on the way. Benja Cremaschi's coming back. Gomez is coming back from the Olympics this week. And about that Leagues Cup, Michelle, we'll get to that later, but kind of like soccer burnout. No one really cares too much about it this year.
Yeah, I just think it's too much. I mean, I'll start with that. I just think, and I know the MLS executives probably would want to hear this, but last summer was the inaugural Leagues Cup, but that really should have just been called the Messi Cup. You know,
Yeah.
that was the debut of Lionel Messi in the United States, and it just so happened his first game and his second game and his third and his fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh were during the Leagues Cup. So he played his very first game in an Inter Miami uniform in the United States. He played it in their Leagues Cup opener against Cruz Azul and had this very dramatic free kick and won the game. It was like a fairy tale story. And then this team that was in last place with a new coach and with Messi and with Suarez and with Alba, they end up winning 7 games and winning the trophy and lifting the trophy. And it was a lovely storybook summer for Inter Miami and for the Messi Cup slash Leagues Cup. This year, it's the second year, but I'm finding that people are, and I'm not just finding, if you look at the price of tickets, how low they are, if you're looking at attendance, there are some games that have drawn big, which is usually when a Mexican team is playing in LA or in Texas. But the attendance has been so so, and the interest has been so so. And I think this summer there's too much on the calendar. Soccer fans, you had the Copa America, you had the European Championship. So the best players in the world were playing earlier this summer in the European Championships and the Copa America. And then you've got the Olympics right now going up against Leagues Cup. You have the Olympics, which are the young best players in the world, including 2 guys from Inter Miami, who Benja Cremaschi that you mentioned, and Diego Gomez playing for Paraguay, and Benja playing for the United States. So you've got the Olympics, men's and women's soccer going on right now up against Leagues Cup. Everybody's coming off Copa America, coming off European championships. And I think there's just a little bit of fatigue. People don't really know what Leagues Cup is. They've only had it one time. I happen to have gone to the dentist today. My dentist is a casual Inter Miami fan. That's what we talk about when I'm at the dentist. While he's pulling my mouth open, he's
Well, there you
asking me
go. I mean
questions
that
about
that
when
that
is
that's
Messi,
better than
when is
any
Messi,
anesthetic.
right? When is Messi coming back? And what about Suarez and whatever? So anyway, the guy, he's a casual fan, and he knows about the team, but he didn't even know that there's a game on Thursday. I said, "Oh yeah, and they're playing again on Thursday." "Oh, they are? What? Who are they playing?" I said, "Oh, well, they're playing Toronto in the Leagues Cup." And he's like, "Oh, in the league, like a league game?" And I said, "No, no, the Leagues Cup." "Oh, is that the thing they won last summer?" "Yeah." "Oh, why is the game on Thursday? Don't they usually play on Wednesday?" I mean, it was just a little confusion. Like, um, I think people are not familiar enough yet with the Leagues Cup. It's not like Champions League or Copa Libertadores or Copa America, something that people know. It's something brand new on the calendar. And this summer, to have it in a summer where the calendar was already so packed, and to be honest, people's pocketbooks. So if you are a soccer fan in Miami or in, New York or in LA or Dallas or wherever, if you've already shelled out big money to go watch Copa America matches, oh, wait, I forgot one more thing on the calendar. In addition to all of these things, on the summer soccer calendar this year, going up with Leagues Cup, is also the international club friendlies that have been going on. The biggest teams in Europe are over here training. We just had a game here. We had, Leipzig against Wolves playing at Chase Stadium. You have Liverpool and Chelsea, Man U, whatever. All these teams are coming over here from Europe. Real Madrid and Barcelona playing in New
Right.
York, playing a Clásico in New York. You've got teams playing in the United States from Europe. So if you are a soccer fan in the United States this summer and you have X number of dollars available to you to spend on soccer, you will have spent a lot of money on Copa tickets because those were super expensive. These international friendlies can also be expensive. So I think Leagues Cup is just a little bit down the totem pole. So while some of the games have been very exciting, have gone to PKs, I'm not saying the games have not been exciting. I'm
Right.
just saying that there's just maybe a little bit less interest in Leagues Cup this year than there was last year.
I'm still visualizing a very animated discussion between you and your dentist, with him probably going, "Can you believe this?" And you're like, "Oh, I can't. Yeah, take the shot so I can give you the answer."
Yeah,
Something like
yeah.
that. Very much. But yeah, no, it's. I mean, I think Messi is a big part of it. They surrounded so much of it last year around him, and for him not to be there, for him to be absent, obviously because of an injury, no fault of his own, but still, it takes away so much luster from this, because like I said, this is a tournament that doesn't have tradition yet. It doesn't have a real established name yet, and it may not for years. But you put such a brand name like his last year, and now you take that away. It's like you just cut
Right,
the
and I
legs
think
out
they
from under
were
it
assuming.
completely.
Right. I think they were assuming that he was going to play this year. I mean, I'm sure that was
Of
the
course they
idea.
were.
Okay,
Yeah.
he'll play in Copa America. He's going to get all this exposure in Copa America, and then he's going to come here and play in the Inter Miami uniform for the Leagues Cup. And it'll be just like last summer. Everybody will pay. And by the way, Apple, you know that the Apple executives were expecting big numbers for Leagues Cup this year because they
Yeah.
got huge numbers last year. And of course, they don't release their ratings for Apple, but if they did, I mean, I would absolutely bet that the numbers are much lower than they were last year when Lionel Messi is playing in the tournament and playing in this country for the first time with Inter Miami. And then you also have Busquets and you have Alba.
Right.
Now this year you don't have Messi. Suarez sat out the game the other day. So I have a feeling the TV ratings are probably down, the attendance is down, ticket prices are down, and interest in general has not been as good. Now, maybe going into knockout rounds now, maybe it'll pick up some steam. But if Messi is still out, which I guess we should go back to the first topic, we were going to say, what's up with him?
Yeah.
What's up
I
with
was gonna say,
Leo?
perfect transition. What's the latest? Yeah.
The latest is the GOAT has missed 15 games. That's a lot of games. And by the way, for all these people who bought
Add that.
tickets, including my husband, has a season ticket. 15 games he hasn't played due to injury and due to Copa, and then resting one. He hasn't played in 15 games, which is definitely not what the plan was for Inter Miami, for the league, for Apple, for anybody affiliated with this league. He is out of the boot. The protective boot is off, so that is a step in the right direction. The swelling has gone down, according to Tata and according to Luis Suarez, who's his close friend that we asked last week when we saw him. So the swelling is down. He's out of the boot, so he's still working out in the gym. We are going to get availability with Tata on Wednesday morning, which will be after this podcast comes out, but what we've been told is that he still had not returned to field practice. He was just out of the boot. After being out of the boot, then he has to he has to transition and do some work on the side with a trainer, on the field maybe, but just one-on-one. So he's not yet, as far as I know, not yet training with the team to be able to be available on Thursday. I mean, I just don't see him playing on Thursday against Toronto. I think that would be an absolute miracle. He'd have to be Superman, which maybe he is. But I'm thinking that
Many people think
he's
so.
out of the boot. I don't think so.
No,
He's out of the boot.
I'm
He's
joking.
out of the boot. Tata has been saying he would like to have the whole team back by the end of August. He hopes to have the whole team back by end of August. He always throws Leo into that equation. I think the goal and the wish, and you never know with these injuries, especially an ankle with a soccer player, there's a lot of change of direction when you're a soccer player. It's not an easy thing to come back from ligament injury in your ankle. But I think the goal and the wish and the hope is that he comes back by the end of August. The end of August is a few more weeks. That would be if this team makes it to the Leagues Cup final to defend their trophy, maybe he could come back and have a big appearance, which would be big on Apple TV, and it would be exciting for everybody if Leo Messi plays in the Leagues Cup final to defend the title. If not, then he would return maybe for the resumption of the MLS season, which I really think they really want to win MLS Cup this year. This team has struggled, to even make the playoffs, let alone make any kind of significant run in the past 4 years. And now they are in first place in the league, and they're really in position to win this league. And I think that is very, very high on the priority list. So as far as Leo Messi goes, I don't expect to see him this Thursday. I doubt he would play next week either. Maybe at the end of August is a more reasonable expectation.
Yeah, and not a good thing, obviously, for on so many fronts for to not to have him there. But what about your boy?
What about El Pistolero? Well, El Pistolero was rested. He did not travel to Tigres. Tata said that they left him behind specifically because they want him to be ready for Thursday. They want him to be ready for the knockout round. And the knockout round, by the way, there's games like every 3 or 4 days here. Once they're in the knockout round, like there's a game Thursday, and then there's possibly a game Monday, and then a game the following Friday or whatever. So Tata said that is why they left him behind. He was having discomfort with his knees. He told us that also after the previous game against Puebla, when he scored. But he did tell us after that he was hurting. His knees were hurting. He played through it because he said the team wanted him and he really wanted to play, and he always wants to play. But he did say that he was still having some pain in his knees. So they left him behind. He did not travel to Houston. He stayed back and rested. But I saw a video of him in training yesterday, and he was killing it. If he looks on Thursday the way he looked on that video, he was scoring goals in the top every single, as Ray Hudson always says, where the spider webs are in the goal, the whatever, where the spiders are live, or where the spider webs are.
Yeah,
He was unbelievable in training in this video that I saw that the team put out of him scoring to the top right, to the top left, all over the place. So Suarez is back in training, and the expectation is that he will play on Thursday against Toronto.
that would be fantastic news for the team just to get the reinforcements because I mean, this game, I mean, we expected it to be tough because we knew they were going on the road, hostile environment like we talked about, practically a road game for Inter Miami. It wasn't terrible. Campana got that PK, scored, but 2-1 loss. Even though some bright spots, no pun intended. Again, looking
Pun
amazing, this kid.
intended, pun
Or
intended.
maybe pun intended, yeah. But the kid looks great. I mean, the kid looks amazing and filling a role that was desperately needed on the defensive side, too.
Yeah, I mean, everybody keeps talking about him. I mentioned the last time that he led the league in interceptions per game. He's really been a bright spot, a surprise. He's the guy that you would have never picked, when they picked him and he was in the draft and he was playing for the second team. That's not someone that you were going to say is in the starting lineup in a critical part of the season. And now it'll be interesting when everybody is back. And Tata said he's really looking forward to have the full complement of players. And again, when we talk about player management, he says that in January, when they looked at the calendar, we as fans, we just kind of go game by game and whatever. He says that as a staff, they looked at the full calendar and they said, okay, we are not going to have these players for Copa. We're not going to have some players for Olympics. Plus, there could be injuries. How are we going to make as deep a team as we can? What are we going to do? And they were able to put together a deep team that's been able to win and play. Even the game the other day against Ditas, they didn't win, but what Tata said after is that he was, he's never happy with a loss, and he didn't actually use the word satisfied, but he said after watching his team play with so many players missing, because Messi was missing, Suarez was missing, Gremaski was missing, Gomez is missing. He said, even with all those guys missing, and the game was in Houston, which was a road game and a home game for Tigres. That stadium was 45 or 46,000 people, and I believe 41,000 or 42,000 were for Tigres. I mean, that there were so
Yeah.
many people who went there from Mexico, from Monterrey, and also people who live in the Texas area who came to that game. So that was very much a Tigres home game against a very good team. Miami was missing a bunch of key players, and yet, they were in position to tie that game up. If it weren't for the goalkeeper of Tigres, Leo Campana had a chance. He scored the one goal on a PK, but then he had another chance to equalize, and the guy made a great save. So they were in position to tie that game, even with missing some key players, even though the game was basically a Tigres home game in Houston. And so what Tata said after was, look, of course we want to win every game, but I feel I wanted a good barometer for this team, because sometimes when you win so many games in a row, you start to maybe deceive yourself and think that you're better than you are. And he said that was a danger, that they had won 6 of 7, 7 of 8 without Messi and Suarez. And everyone's like, oh my God, this team is like a shoo-in to win the Leagues Cup and a shoo-in to win the MLS Cup. He said he was really curious to see how they would do against a top flight opponent. And he was very satisfied and optimistic that what he saw was very encouraging to him. And that once they get these other players back and they have a full roster and everyone's back integrated, which by the way is going to be an adjustment period. It's not like these guys are just going to come in and just be inserted in the lineup and everything is going to be hunky-dory. There will be some adjustment period, but he said that he was very happy with how the team looked.
Yeah, I got to think it's not, like you said, it's not get off the bus and immediately everything's back to normal. We've seen it happen before. This team has had waves where they're without their players for a while, and you have that acclimation period. So here comes another one once they do. But good thing it happened now, because again, it wasn't an elimination loss. They knew they were advancing. So now they have to kick it into gear and take these next few games in a row to be able to win this thing. And can they sustain it? Can they go on another run? Because they could face other situations similar to Tigres where, they're facing a quality opponent either from the Mexican League or from MLS. Can they put together that kind of a win? I mean, it starts this week, Thursday, Toronto FC. I mean, what are you looking forward to in this matchup, Michelle? How do they come away with a victory to move on to the 16?
Yeah, I think this game is very winnable. They just played. They just played on July 28th. So they basically played what, 10 days ago or whatever.
If that, yeah.
They not even 10 days ago. They played,
Yeah.
8 days ago, whatever.
Right.
They just played Toronto and they beat them 3-1. That was here. Toronto, did qualify and got this far. So obviously they're on a positive run right now. I do think Toronto is a team that Miami should beat, especially at home. And Suarez is supposed to be playing. Benha Kramaski is back. Gomez should be back and available also. Both of their teams were eliminated from the Olympics. So, they're going to have the Olympians will be back. Suarez will be back. And, Messi will not be back. I mean, that would just be, he'd have to be Superman. But
Mind blowing, right?
yeah, that's not happening. But
Yeah.
I do think that they'll advance from this Toronto game. Of course, they have to play it. I'm not saying, you have to play the games and see what happens. Going forward, though, that is going to be more difficult because the seeding for this tournament, the home field advantage, is not based. This is one of the other weird things about this tournament. The seedings and the home field advantage is not based on how they did in last year's Leagues Cup. They are the defending champion. Inter Miami is the defending champion. They lifted that cup. We saw it. This was the crowning achievement. The seeding for this tournament is how they finished in the league last season in their respective leagues. Yes. So at this point, the reason, and all the games are in the United States. Okay. So at this point, Inter Miami got the home game for Thursday because Toronto finished lower than them in the league, and that is why they have the home game. Um, and if they were playing Pachuca, they would also have the home game because the game has to be in the United States. Now, the next round, if Miami wins on Thursday, their next game in the round of 16 is the winner of Columbus Crew, defending champion. Columbus Crew, defending league champion. Yes, and or Kansas City. Kansas City also finished higher than them in the league standings. So either way, whether they play Kansas City or Columbus in the next round, if they get to the round of 16, that would be a road game. And going forward after that, any team that was ahead of them in the MLS standings or a top Mexican team this year, to give the Mexican teams a little bit more parity, because all the games are being hosted in the United States. And last year there was a complaint, and warranted, that the Mexican teams were having to travel all over the United States and that they were at a disadvantage to the American teams that didn't have to travel as far. And American teams were basically the home team for all the games. This year they've made like pods. They've made like Tigres got to play both of its games in Houston back to back. So that was designated that way because Tigres was one of the top teams. They got to play their two games. Their Group Cup games were in Houston, so they didn't have to travel. They played Puebla in Houston, and they played Inter Miami in Houston. Going forward, the top few Mexican teams will have U.S. home field over Inter Miami. So even though Inter Miami is the League's Cup champion, they don't really get any benefit from being the League's Cup champion because, as I understand it, every game going forward could be a road game for this team, even though they are the defending champion. So it's not going to be an easy road. It's not going to be an easy road.
And that's why I brought up that, they will face this potentially a similar situation to Tigres. Once again, quality opponent, hostile environment, road game, yada, yada, all of that stuff. And can they overcome that on a consistent basis when it's coming at them every few days? And Mr. Messi is not around, conceivably, more than likely. And who else might not be around at that point? I mean, but that Columbus Crew game, if that happens, sneak peek.
That's a tough one.
I'm telling you, I'm going to stick to that potential prediction that I think that is the biggest obstacle they will face. That team they're basically like, like the wrestling champion holding the belt and taunting them like, come and get it, doing like the Rock, like bring it. That's Columbus for this team. I mean, until they get there and potentially earn that opportunity and take it from them, they're still the champs and they're still playing at a very high level. I like just the numbers this team's putting up, the defensive metrics for this Columbus team, far better than what Inter Miami had done until maybe recently. Now with a guy like Yannick Bright helping out, maybe down the stretch, they become a better defensive team. They're going to have to, because that Columbus team is still very good. Even Tata mentioned them. Remember when he was saying that we're kind of in that top three?
He said they weren't in the top three. He
right.
said, exactly. He said basically, in Tata's mind, the top three teams in the league, when Inter Miami is not at full strength, he said, he felt that the top three teams in the league in the middle of July were Columbus, Cincinnati, and LAFC. Miami was not one of the top three in his mind, and they needed to play better defense. They needed to have their full roster in order to be able to compete with those three in his mind for the MLS Cup. So anyone who thinks that, yes, they are in first place in the league right now, there's no question. And Inter Miami has had a great season so far. And they have won 7 out of 8. They won 7 out of 8 without Lionel Messi. So they've done great this so far this season, and no one is complaining at all. But Tata has been around a long time. He has a lot of perspective. He doesn't get too excited up or down. He's looking big picture. He's always looking big picture. And that is one thing that I have to say I really like about him as a coach. Starting with the fact that every time we ask him about anything, he always says, let's go back to January. You know, he says, let's go back to January. Avid. He always starts everything with Avid. Like, let's see.
Let's see. Yep.
Avid. Whenever we ask him a question, he does a pause and then
Let's
he says,
review.
Avid. And let's review. Exactly. Let's review. And he always goes back, Avid. Every time someone asks him about this team and where they are in the stand, Avid. Bueno, en enero, cuando empezamos en enero a poner el plantel, a planear el plantel, he always goes back to the planning of the roster in January. Right. And he talks about how this is a long range project and there are different chapters in this journey. And he's looking at the whole thing big picture. And that is why, for example, they rested Luis Suarez. That was a game against Tigres. You would think, oh, maybe they're going to bring their best. They left him back because he's thinking long term. He's thinking long range, and he has been managing, especially the older players, giving them rest. By the way, Busquets didn't play either until the 68th minute or something, 67th minute the other day against Tigres. So that game against Tigres did not have Messi, did not have Suarez, and Busi was on the bench up until the 67th minute or so. So he rested Busi also. He has been very, very, strategic about when players play, when they rest, who he plays, who he starts. One thing I wanted to mention too, this is something that I don't know the answer to yet. I've been fishing around and I haven't caught anything yet on the end of my line, despite all my fishing expeditions. Inter Miami the other day on Friday night, they announced, it's one of these things when they announce something late at night, it's usually like they don't want people to make too big of a deal of it. But Inter Miami made a trade and got $100,000. They got for $100,000. They got an extra international roster spot. Now, the summer transfer window for MLS closes August 14th. So basically, in about a week, a little over a week, the summer transfer window will close. They got David Martinez, and that is all that I assumed. We all pretty much assumed that's it. They've got David Martinez. That was the one thing they were going to get in this window. They just got, on Friday night, made a deal for an extra international roster spot, which leads me to believe that something else is cooking. Something else is brewing in that Inter Miami kitchen where they're trying to get another international player. I don't know who that is. I do know this. I found the timing of CJ Dos Santos getting an opportunity to play out of the blue in the first Leagues Cup game against Puebla. I think that may have been an opportunity for him to get some playing time so that he could be shopped around. Maybe someone was interested in him from around MLS or elsewhere and wanted to see him play. I don't know what is brewing. I also think Schneider Borgelin I heard is heading to somewhere else for some kind of deal because he's not getting much playing time as a forward here. So maybe they're going to put him somewhere else. But I think there may be one more move coming, is my point, before August 14th. So they may not even be at full. Tata may have one more. Tata and Chris Henderson may have one more move up their pink sleeve before August 14th. So, we'll see what happens. But I do think that he has a very good long-range picture. And right now he's thinking, let's let Leo Messi get healthy. We're not going to rush him back. Let's make sure that Suarez is okay for these knockout rounds, so they rested him the other day. They rested Busquets also, and now we'll see what happens going forward.
Yeah, I think that obviously that's the big key, but yeah, it'd be interesting to see if they can add a piece or two maybe just at the last minute and really continue to fortify this team for that stretch run. But Michelle and I will be back to document what happens in that Toronto game. Will this team still be alive next week in the Leagues Cup? Odds are probably yes, but you never know. But we'll be back to talk about that and much, much more with Inter Miami, where everything stands with Luis Suarez, Messi, you name it, next week on Inside Inter Miami. Just once again, want to thank everybody for watching the show, for listening to the show. Remember, you can catch us on YouTube at MiamiHerald.com. Follow all of Michelle's coverage of Inter Miami, Lionel Messi, everybody in the soccer world at MiamiHerald.com as well. And if you're only able to listen to it, remember you can catch it on iTunes, Spotify, all the podcatchers. We're on there. So until next week, for Michelle Kaufman, I'm Andre Fernandez. Thanks for watching Inside Inter Miami. We'll see you then.
And enjoy the game.
That's right.